chief architect laughed at the disabled girl, but what she said about the building shocked everyone. Before we dive into this story, hit the comments and tell us your city or country. Let's see how far this story reaches. If you like the video, please subscribe. The grand unveiling of the city's newest skyscraper was packed with politicians, designers, and a crowd buzzing with pride. At the front stood the chief architect, smiling confidently beneath spotlights. But when a young girl in a wheelchair rolled to the microphone during the Q&A, his expression twisted into a smirk. "This space wasn't made for people like me," she said, her voice clear, calm, and devastating. The crowd chuckled awkwardly. The architect laughed outright, until she pointed to the structural flaw no one else noticed. A flaw that would cost the firm millions. A flaw that changed lives. And a lesson that the most overlooked voices sometimes carry the most profound wisdom. No one expected her to speak. No one was prepared for what she'd say. 12-year-old Maya had always been observant. Living with muscular dystrophy since age 6, her wheelchair became part of her identity, but it didn't limit her mind. If anything, it sharpened it. She noticed things others missed: slopes too steep, buttons placed too high, doors that opened incorrectly. Her mom, Denise, was a city planner who'd fought for years to make urban spaces more inclusive. She often brought Maya to city meetings, not because she had to, but because Maya understood the world in ways adult architects didn't. So when the invitation arrived for the unveiling of the new $300 million commercial tower, touted as the most accessible structure in the state, Denise and Maya attended with cautious hope. The building was sleek, modern, shimmering with glass and eco-efficient features. The media was everywhere. The mayor beamed. Standing at the center of it all was Richard Langston, the celebrated chief architect known for his designs and ego in equal measure. Maya sat quietly through the speeches, but her eyes weren't on the people. They were in the building, the layout, the entrance ramp, the emergency exits, the elevator placement. The so-called inclusive bathroom required 2 sharp turns and a passcode. When the Q&A began, Maya knew she couldn't stay silent. She raised her hand. At first, the moderator ignored her, but after a nudge from Denise and an awkward silence, they passed her the mic. Maya spoke just 17 words before the crowd shifted uncomfortably, and Langston, rather than respond with grace, laughed. A child had just pointed out that his accessible building wasn't truly accessible. He had no idea what was coming next. Maya's voice, though small, carried through the high-ceilinged atrium. "The accessible entrance is on the wrong side of the slope. In the rain, that'll flood fast." The room went quiet. Langston chuckled and leaned into the mic. "Well, that's a creative observation. You must have quite the imagination." Polite laughter rippled through the crowd. Maya didn't flinch. She continued. "There's no tactile signage at the elevators. The emergency stairwell has a turn too tight for a wheelchair. The so-called accessible bathroom has a button too high for most seated users. And the handrail outside is slippery composite. It won't hold someone steady if it's wet." Langston's smile faded. "She's right," someone whispered. A woman from the planning committee pulled out her notes. Her eyes widened. Langston adjusted his tie. "Let's remember," he said stiffly. "This is a general-use commercial space. No structure is perfect." Denise finally stood up. "Mr. Langston," she said, "my daughter uses spaces like this every day. She's not nitpicking. She's surviving." A few audience members clapped quietly. Maya wasn't done. "If the fire alarms go off, and I'm on the 14th floor, what do I do? Your evacuation platform has no straps. The door doesn't open automatically. And the backup generator, it's behind a stairwell." The tension became electric. One of the local news cameras zoomed in. Engineers at the back whispered urgently. A junior architect flipped through a binder. Denise leaned over to her daughter and whispered, "You've made your point. Let's sit down." But Maya looked up at the stage and said something no one expected. "You didn't build this building for people like me. You built it for awards." Gasps. Audible. Real. Langston's jaw clenched. Before he could reply, the building's lead engineer, panicked, stood and whispered in his ear. They had double-checked her claims. She was right. Langston turned pale. Maya's observations weren't opinions. They were facts. Reporters had started, live tweeting the exchange. Hashtags popped up. Design fail. Listen to Maya. Inclusion matters. One local disability rights advocate shouted, "Why weren't we consulted?" Another voice added, "She's 12 and caught what your team missed with $300. Million and a dozen experts." Langston stepped back, his earlier confidence completely gone. Before he could spin a response, the city's Commissioner of Infrastructure took the microphone. "I'd like to publicly thank Miss Maya for pointing out what should have been obvious, to all of us. We clearly failed in oversight." He turned to Langston. "And I'll be ordering a full audit of this project." Langston tried to object, but the room had turned. Not against him, but against the culture of arrogance that valued accolades over accessibility. Maya didn't smile. She didn't want to humiliate anyone. She just wanted buildings that worked for everyone. "I'm not trying to ruin anything," she said softly. "I just don't want anyone to be left behind in an emergency, or told a building is inclusive when it's only halfway there." And for the first time that afternoon, Langston said nothing. The next morning, headlines rolled out across the state. 12-year-old girl outsmarts architect at 300 Malheurs Tower unveiling. Real accessibility hero, Maya, 12, redefines inclusion standards. Chief architect forced into review after child exposes design gaps. Maya was interviewed on 3 local news stations. She used the opportunity not to gloat, but to educate. "It's not about pointing fingers," she said. "It's about fixing the foundation, literally." Langston issued a public statement admitting unintended oversights and announced he would take a course in inclusive design. The city committed to new standards requiring lived experience input for every new public building. And Maya? She was invited to consult on 2 upcoming projects. She even received a letter from the National Association of Accessibility Advocates, asking if she'd speak at their youth summit. She didn't do it for attention. She did so, the next little girl in a wheelchair wouldn't be told, "You don't belong here." And when asked how it felt to challenge one of the country's top architects in front of everyone, she just smiled and said, "He built a tall building. I just wanted it to stand for something." If you like the video, please subscribe.